Now. Hello, everyone, and welcome back on this podcast, Talking Female Health with Amy and Lisa. And first of all, Happy New Year! Happy New Year 2024! Happy New Year to you too, Amy.
And to you.
Thank you. And we thought it would be very timely to talk about something that happens around New Year, which is that many people make New Year's resolutions. And I don't know about you, I've tried that myself and I never stick with it. I may make them and then I forget about them, or I force myself to do something. And come February or latest March, I've forgotten all about them. Have you experienced something similar, Amy?
I have indeed. Yes. Yeah. It can be really overwhelming.
Yeah. And so we thought it would be good to share why now is actually a really bad time to make New Year's resolutions, and also what the crux of it is and what you can do instead to make this a more lasting, enjoyable, sustainable experience for you. And yeah, shall I just dive in with what I've come to think about New Year's resolutions?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because I've recently published a blog on that as well. And it was actually quite funny that me doing a lot of embodied cyclical living work and being aligned with the personal cycle and the seasons and all of that. And then not too long ago, I read something about, well, winter is not the time for new beginnings. And I was like, oops, true. Because winter, outer winter, as much as inner winter, is a time for rest, is a time for composting, for digesting, like inner and outer digestion and processing. And it's not a time to start something new. When you look at nature in winter, there's often even snow, blankets of snow, and nothing much is happening, like to the eyes. Everything that's happening is happening underground and going on without us actually actively doing anything about this. But once comes spring, February, March, that's when we start to regain energy as a species, like nature as well, and we are part of nature. So that's actually a much better time to start implementing, in the sense of actually doing things. And so right now is more about looking at, okay, what do I want to start once the time comes and my energy comes back? And what can I do right now to nourish myself and my body and my spirit, so that I feel like I have the stamina to start the growth process that is going to happen? That's the very first quick thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting how the new year falls in this time of year, and how we've created this almost falsehood of needing to start something new, to be, because I get swept away with it all as well. We hear a lot of the terminology, like there's a lot of marketing out there as well, like new year, new you. Who do you want to be? It's
Start
like
the year strong.
yeah. It's like there's this big pressure to transform yourself within the year ahead. And I love that you've brought the seasons into it as well, because I personally really struggle with setting goals in general, because my brain just thinks of all the other factors, all the other magic that's coming to me that I don't know is going to happen, that is going to take my focus into a different direction. Sometimes it's for a really amazing reason, and sometimes it's because something not so good's happened. But to live in that flow, what I feel that I try to set myself a goal for a year, and would start to get really disheartened towards the end of the year when that goal hadn't been set, because I was focusing too much on that outcome. And it wasn't until that I really started to practice gratitude and like reflection. And I think, okay, I'm looking at all the things I haven't done and I haven't achieved, but let's look at the other side of what I have actually achieved, and what magic and happiness and joy and like all of the good things that I've experienced this year, that maybe in that moment I wasn't enjoying it enough because it wasn't the big goal that I'd set myself at the beginning of the year. So, and I really like that you brought seasons into it as well, because I think everybody responds differently to different seasons. And, you know, as you've just talked about winter being a time of like going within and like calming down and like resting, for me, it's quite the opposite. I get quite energized and get quite my brain gets all these ideas, and I think the darkness outside creates some creative spark in me, and I get all these ideas. And then in summer in particular, if it's hot and warm, I want to be outside. I want to be in nature. I sleep a lot more in summer as well. I get really tired in summer. So I think a big part of it is listening to your body and listening to what your environment is for you. And if you're feeling right now that you're really set on this goal, whatever you want to call it, goal, intention that you've set yourself, then that's absolutely fine. But it's also absolutely fine if you're not feeling it. Like if you're thinking, oh gosh, you know, everybody else is sharing how they've cleaned the house and everything's amazing and they've got this really big fresh start for 2014, and I'm at 24, and you know, I'm here tripping over laundry and struggling to get any energy because I just want to hibernate and cuddle up on the sofa.
It's interesting what you say there, because you just said you get lots of ideas and energized in winter, and simultaneously you feel like you need to sleep and to slow down. Or that's at least how I understood it. And that would also make sense actually, because like now is not the time for a lot of active doing, but it's still time for dreaming and getting ideas and thinking about how you want to put that into action.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what we talk about, the conversations that we have, Lisa, it's about listening to what you need.
Yeah.
And this is one of the times of year where we're all collectively forced to think about what we want in the year ahead, and you know, who we want to be and what we want to become and all of the opportunity. And there's other times of the year where we're forced to think about different things as well, you know, and it's just really interesting to observe this when you've come to a place where you're okay with not being part of that crowd. And this has always been a realization for me as I've kind of acknowledged how I've kind of tried to go with the majority and, you know, like go with the norm and what everybody else is doing and thinking and saying. And there's always been a big part of me feeling like I'm not enough. Whatever that is, whether
behind.
I'm not hitting these goals, or I'm not you know, I'm not active enough, or I'm not earning enough, or I'm not doing enough, or but I think I've said this before, that I've come to a place now in my life where one of the most important things for me is sleep. Like, and getting a good night's sleep. and waking up feeling rested and restored. And a lot of the time, when I step back from when I was trying to go with everybody else, I used to think, how do people do it? Like, they must be getting up at like 5 a.m. to be able to fit everything into their day. And it wasn't until I realized, hang on a minute, sleep's really important for me. So
And time is not linear.
yeah,
Time is cyclical. It expands or contracts according to your inner state. And when you've
yes,
slept and you feel well rested, then you feel like you've got
mhm,
lots of time to get to the important things that are
yeah,
important to you, which again
yeah,
is not what is important out there, but what's important to you.
yeah. And I always feel more called now to have an intention rather than a goal, and to have flexibility around that intention. And I think you speak about this in your blog about giving yourself a word for the year. Yeah. Um, which I thought it was really interesting because I read your blog literally after I'd just been thinking about my like what my intention was for the year, because it arrived on New Year's Day. And for me, it was just joy. Like, that was the one thing that I wanted more of in every aspect of my life. I want
And
more.
that's not to say that it can't be like a sentence or 2 or 3 words, that because
Yeah,
sometimes they express slightly different facets, and it's okay to have more than one, but
yeah,
don't overdo it.
yeah.
It's about thinking, how do you want to live that, as you say, in the different areas of your
hmm
life?
So yeah, there was two that came up for me. One was joy and one was simplicity,
So good.
because I know that my brain and my nervous system has a tendency to overcomplicate everything and make
Yeah.
everything a lot harder than it needs to be. And when I actually catch myself and take a step back and think, okay, how can we make this as joyous and simple as possible? Then everything becomes a bit more fun. Yeah.
Right. And also with the timeline, it's so interesting, because why does New Year's sit right now where it sits? Well, it's a made up calendar.
hmm
When they
Yeah.
introduced the Gregorian calendar, they said this date, or really this second when one year ends and one new begins, as the point. And when you look to, for example, China and Chinese New Year,
hmm
that's happening somewhere between end of January to early March.
Yeah.
I think this year it's somewhere end of February, but like they go with a different calendar. And also astrologically speaking, the new astrological new year is when the sun moves into Aries, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, which happens on March 21st.
Yeah.
So that is a far better place for like really new beginnings, because that's aligned with the stars and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, and that also ties into the like the word aspect. Time is cyclical, healing is cyclical, and these things, our intentions too, it's not like it has to happen within this time frame of 365 days or 66 days. I think this year there's the extra day. And what if it happens next January 15th? So what? Does that like bust all your plans?
Yeah.
Right? Like sometimes we have to call ourselves out on that, because that's what our brains do naturally. They
Yeah.
are trained to have a deadline. Lovely word, isn't it? A
Mm.
deadline. Reach it or you'll be dead.
Yeah.
Um, but like having this fixed plan is something our brain loves, because that makes it feel safe when there is a fixed plan. But we can't control. And as you say, life happens while you go about your days. You can move into the direction of your intention and then still have the flexibility to, oh, this is joyous as well, so let's explore that and have a detour.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you get trapped in the goal setting space, you can almost become a bit blinkered and not see the opportunities that the universe is bringing to you. And one thing that I noticed as well that happened with me was I set myself a goal and then I'd think, oh, that's not going to happen by that time. So I'll just give up. Like whether that's energetically or, however that giving up happened, it would be there. And like you said, like, what if it's coming on the 2nd of January next year, or whenever your goal is for? If you are aiming for something, it doesn't mean that you have to have a deadline for it. And that's something, again, that society is really good at drumming into us, that you've got to have deadlines and time sensitive projects and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
Something I discussed with a client actually just yesterday, where she said that like she doesn't go after goals because goals in the society, it's something you have to achieve, but then but then what? You've achieved it and now you need another goal, or else you lose all motivation or all drive, right? So it sounds like something you have to strive for, and once you reach it, then what? Whereas an intention is more like, joy and more joy and more joy. And how can I make this a little more joyful? And how can I make that a little more joyful?
Yeah.
And of course, that doesn't mean you will enjoy every single thing that happens, but how can you find the joy in what you're doing?
Yeah. And I think with the intention as well, it's wider than you. So when I speak about joy and simplicity, I'm thinking about my clients and my community, and how can I bring them more joy and simplicity, and like almost spread this intention that is good for me with others. Whereas if you're stuck with that static goal, it can become quite a selfish pursuit. Not with it, it doesn't set, you don't do it intentionally. You don't set out to think, oh, I'm going to be really selfish in my pursuit of this one goal. But if you're so focused on that one goal, again, it can put the blinkers on and make you forget everybody else who's around you, who can support you, and asking for help, and, bringing other people in to help you and them achieve what they need to achieve. So I think that's a really important part of it as well, how when you look at it differently and not just as to what am I going to do for me, when you have that intention, you can then spread it to other people as well.
And something we touched on before we started recording, actually, that a lot of the intentions that are set, or the resolutions that are set, are around health, in the sense of I want to quit smoking, I want to lose X amount of pounds, I want to go to the gym 3 times a week. I know everyone talks about setting specific goals, smart goals that are as specific as possible. But as you say, like for me too, it takes the fun out of the whole thing. And also it's like there's no space, no flexibility around it. And then you start forcing yourself when you don't see any progress, or you just give up. Because what good is it anyway?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas sorry, you go.
Go on, Lisa.
Whereas when you think of a word of the year, that could be vitality, for example, or health. Health is but health is a very broad term. It affects not only like how much activity do I have in my days, but also what kind of foods do I want to put in my body, starting to listen to what actually feels healthy. How does my body feel when I eat a certain food compared to another food? And I like to say that doesn't mean you can't have chocolate or cake, because sometimes that really does make you feel better. And
Yeah.
that's okay. And it transports into these other areas. Like, is my friend XYZ a healthy relationship for me? Does it bring me joy? Does it feel expansive? Like we have mutual benefit from conversations? Or does it feel draining? And if it feels draining and I want to be healthy or have vitality, maybe I need to like stop or reduce the contact.
Yeah.
So it will affect all these different areas.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just thinking, like, when you were saying about having the intention of health compared to having the intention of going to the gym 3 times a week. And to me, there's this big expectation on the gym, like turning up at the gym, putting the work in is going to make you healthy. Whereas I'm just thinking of my past year where I do have a membership. I don't go all the time, but I do a couple of the classes and I enjoy it. But I accidentally fell into gymnastics and just like never done gymnastics before in my life. Went to my nephew's 7th birthday party at a gymnastics place and just loved it, and saw that they did adult classes. So I signed up and went along, and it was a really brave thing for me to do because I didn't know anybody who went, and it's in a different town, and I love it. It's one of the best things I did in last year. And not only has it made me healthier in terms of how I look after my body, because I'm asking it to do things that it can't do. So I need to support. I can't just go every Monday and expect to get better. I've got to do things in between. And I've met some amazing friends. And that part of the health, like having a healthy place to go with other women, you know, all different ages, shapes, sizes, just trying to have fun and do things that we can't do. It's so much fun.
Or
And if
maybe
I just,
finding that you can do them after all.
yes,
You
yeah,
just
yeah,
thought you couldn't.
exactly. And just having that mindset that you don't have, it doesn't have to be in a gym, and it doesn't have to be in an organized situation like a gymnastics class. It could be going for a walk with your friend. You know, you don't have to confine it to one thing.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean. If my goal had been at the beginning of the year to go to the gym 3 times a week, and I completely dismissed the gymnastics because it fell on a night that I wanted to go to the gym instead of go to gymnastics, I wouldn't have opened up the opportunity to go down that path and meet all those people and have all those experiences.
Yeah. One other thing that you mentioned that I just want to point out is you place the pressure on the gym or whatever it is you do to make you happy.
Yeah.
Which is giving your personal power away. Whereas when you look at, okay, what does feel healthy for me? It places the spotlight back to you and what you can do to actually support what you are going after. And not having this savior kind of thing. I call it the fairy tale lie, like waiting for the prince on the white horse to come and sweep me up. Versus, okay, and in my situation, what can I do? What do I really want to do? Like what feels the way I want to feel? Because I think behind most intentions or behind most resolutions, there's actually a certain emotion or feeling that you want to feel. So get clear on that and which word or intention supports that. And it will, as you say, distribute into all areas of your life.
Yeah.
Amazing. So your words are joy and simplicity.
They are.
Mine came to me already in December, and the first is self-trust. To, like, when I get overwhelmed, to shut down the computer, to shut down my phone, and find the trust in me, believing that I've got the answers, and they may take a while to come up, but they will. And the second is joy also, because I am experiencing not enough joy in my life. The tricky thing now is I know that the universe will test us, and it will send us all sorts of situations where we need to stick with our commitment to the joy and the simplicity and the self-trust in my case. And that's okay. The universe is benevolent. It does this to really reaffirm you in your commitment. And yeah, I would be curious for you who is listening or watching, what would your word or your intention or your phrase be for 2024? Please let us know.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant to know.
And also, if there like any questions, any insights that you had, any reflections that you want to give, please feel free to use the comment section or send us a mail. Yeah, and let's get into a conversation around goal setting versus intention setting.
Yeah.
Then I'd say we speak to you next time, and until then, much love. Bye.
Bye.